Each season of Chucky to this point has been based on one of the films from the original movie series. Season 1 tried to recreate the magic of Child's Play 2.
We've taken a lot of pains to mimic the specific look of the doll himself from Child's Play 2.
And Season 2 was clearly the spiritual sequel to the 5th entry, Seed of Chucky.
And we wouldn't hurt a fly.
I wouldn't even hurt a fly.
Early on in Season 3, we see an investigator lay down evidence markers, reading 2, 5, and 7. So does that mean that Season 3 would follow in the footsteps of the 7th Chucky movie, Cult of Chucky? Well, not exactly. This time, the series does its own thing, opening with a power outage in the White House and a president's son who's obsessed with ghosts, a clue about the introduction to the spirit realm that would come later on in the season. The next day, we're reintroduced to the main protagonist, Jake, who mentions that he's working on his last art piece, calling it a commentary on the dark side of the most popular dolls, but it will only be complete once he has a good guy, a doll that has become impossible to find. This is a hint that we may be getting close to the end of the entire Chucky franchise. With no good guy dolls left to move into, Chucky's soul will eventually have no vessel to inhabit. There's more evidence to suggest that the long-running series may be close to a conclusion. The president's younger son, Henry Collins, has a room covered in dinosaur stuff, which may be a thematic parallel to the idea that Chucky and his army of possessed good guy dolls could be going extinct. Or it could just be a parallel to Andy Barclay's room in the first movie, Child's Play. But given that Chucky appears on national television with the president's family not long before the entire place burns to the ground, you have to believe that the general public is also on the verge of believing in Chucky, a doll seen at many bizarre crime scenes over the last 36 years. Maybe Chucky should spend some time around some lower profile people.
Police say the man you see right there holding a Chucky doll was using that toy to scare people outside of a market.
Yep, that's a real news story that just happened, despite the cancellation of the Chucky TV series. But the series wasn't about to go out without trying to sneak a few more secrets past you, but luckily, I am like a Secret Service agent. Nothing gets past me. From hidden meanings in street signs, to familiar recipes for mayhem, to pause or you'll miss it moments, these are the things that you might have missed in the final season of Chucky. I gotta admit, I was not particularly excited about Chucky Season 3, given the big step away from horror in Season 2 and the posters that circulated depicting Chucky in a political arena. The only thing as bad as being lectured on religion is being lectured on politics. So it took me a long time to get to this one, but my audience was pretty persistent with the request for me to talk about it, so here we are. You little freaks better actually watch this now that it's here. But Season 3 was not the 6 hours of political cringe that I expected it to be. The president's storyline, as far as I could tell, was just an original idea rather than some kind of political cope or brag session with heavy-handed commentary about real electoral candidates. The man in office, James Collins, is a new contender who runs the country under a policy of full transparency to the people. So instead of a battle between party, there's a battle of ideals, transparency versus secrecy, something I'll revisit during my analysis. I just wanted to say, I think it's very tasteful. In a world where people are way too comfortable sharing their personal political opinions all the time, no matter how inappropriate the setting. But the real reason it seems to be set in the White House appears to be not for the government, but rather for the building's potential as a haunted ghost house, which is established right from the get-go. Let's get into the things you missed. While previous seasons had episode titles that sometimes parodied existing movie titles, like Season 1's Cape Queer or Season 2's Death on Denial, Season 3's episodes were just straight up movie titles with no changes or alterations made. And that starts off with Murder at 1600, a 1997 political thriller about a detective investigating a murder at the White House, or in the case of Chucky, a Secret Service agent who is offed by the supernatural doll 25 minutes in. It starts with the Chuck causing a power outage and the first family having to be relocated for safety, during which the teenage son, Grant Collins, is caught smoking by his Secret Service agent. Grant's smoking is ironic because it's in front of this Just Say No poster, which was an advertising campaign that was part of the US's war on drugs. The woman on the poster is former President Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy. I don't know why she put herself on the poster. I don't even do drugs, so I agree with the message, but she just looks like someone who would be the fun police, you know? But what has even less chill is seen in the other son's bedroom, this clown Jack-in-the-Box painting. That seems to be a reference to the poster for Child's Play 2, because what kid would actually want to have this? It's gotta be an Easter egg, and it's probably no coincidence that this is the same poster that gets splattered with the brains of the Secret Service agent that Chucky eliminates for his first tally of the new season. The next day, we catch back up with Jake, who is in the middle of doing a live stream on Facebook. You know, the platform of choice for teenagers in the 2020s. In fact, we know the creators of the show are aware that Facebook is not popular with the kids, because they made a joke about it in Season 1.
Hey Lexi, he's on Facebook.
For some reason, all of the usernames look like passwords. One of the usernames is Billy-the-Kid, which is the name of an outlaw in the old American West who was said to have been shot dead after escaping prison, but rumors of his survival persisted for decades after his death. This could be a nod to Chucky, or maybe even an alias of Chucky himself. Charles Lee Ray has officially been dead for a long time, but there are always rumors of his continued survival inside of a Chucky doll. That morning, the president has a meeting with the governor of Rhode Island.
Can't keep the governor of Rhode Island waiting.
Could that maybe be a nod to Curse of Chucky, which took place in Rhode Island? I'll admit that one's kind of dumb, but hey, sometimes people like the dumb ones. I mean, just look how many followers every big Twitch streamer has. And speaking of dumb, my next thing you missed is honestly pretty puzzling. President Collins finds himself late for a meeting with his own wife, but when his secretary reminds him, we get a glimpse at her monitor. And why is there a battery icon for a desktop computer? Also, don't worry too much about the date and time. Day after day, it never changes whenever we see this monitor. And story-wise, this is before Halloween, not after. I hereby declare that canonically, her computer is broken. President Collins meets with his wife Charlotte, who's stressing herself out over the colors that she's gonna use to decorate the White House, and he tells her that he doesn't want her to put too much pressure on herself. This is funny in retrospect, because she basically ends up bearing the largest burden of anyone when Chucky starts killing off White House staff members, and it's up to her to try to hide it from the public. The first one of those deaths is just moments later, but this first one is not kept secret from the press. We see various fictional news channels, like News Channel 2, CNC, which seems to be a parody of CNN, and a host of others. It feels like a missed opportunity. They should have included WDOL from the original movie. Maybe that was just a local Chicago station. Season 3, Episode 2 is called Let the Right One In, which is the name of a 2008 film about a boy who befriends a vampire girl in his apartment complex. But in the case of the Chucky episode, it's about Grant letting in Lexi, who wants to use him to get to Chucky. I get that they're trying to mimic the circumstances of Let the Right One In. He's literally choosing her to let her into the White House, but this is one of the most ridiculous storylines they've attempted so far. It's shown that the president's son has 2.1 million followers. He would never invite some random from the internet to meet up. There's no way that would be allowed, right? And then instead of screening her at one location and then bringing her to the actual location, he's just waiting there like a sitting duck. Gotta be the easiest assassination target of all time.
There was me. There's my friends. Calm down, okay? Here they are, IRL. Go ahead.
You're not even gonna check them? Are you kidding me? This dude had one job and he's just like, yeah, go ahead. Meanwhile, back at the White House, a CIA agent named Warren Price is brought in to investigate the murder and notices good guy footprints in the closet. A callback to the original movie, where investigators found that Chucky left footprints at the scene of his first ever crime in doll form. Shockingly, this isn't enough to determine that Chucky committed this crime, or the next one where he takes out the president's secretary, because apparently they just don't have cameras in the White House. Come on, this is supposed to be one of the most secure buildings in the world. And it's not like this president would have had them taken out as a privacy precaution.
I just think that if you're gonna brand yourself as president of transparency, and you basically sell off the family's privacy to win an election, you gotta take the bad with the good.
The main trio, Jake, Devin, and Lexi, are staying in the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. And I think this plays into the whole transparency versus privacy theme that runs through this whole season. The Watergate Hotel is most known for a scandal where 5 men were arrested for breaking into Democratic offices at the Watergate complex to plant wiretaps and steal documents. And the then president, Richard Nixon, was recorded ordering the FBI to halt its investigation and cover it up, which was considered an obstruction of justice. Nixon was pressured to resign to avoid impeachment.
People have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
It's probably the most well-known example of secrecy in American politics, and it's kind of strange that the hotel has posters and newspapers on the walls referencing this Watergate scandal. Pretty sure it's considered one of the more shameful moments in American history. You think they would want to distance themselves from that. By the way, I looked up a room tour, and no such posters seem to exist at the real-life hotel. Additionally, the characters are staying in room 1105.
Watergate Hotel room 1105.
That number is also tied to secrecy. In British lore, 1105 represents the 5th of November, also known as Guy Fawkes Night, where Guy Fawkes and his fellow conspirators attempted to blow up the Houses of Parliament and assassinate King James I. Most famously, the movie V for Vendetta adopts November 5th as a symbol of rebellion and exposing dark truths of a totalitarian government.
Remember the 5th of November.
In Chucky, the battle of transparency versus secrecy plays out between the ideals of President Collins, who represents transparency, and Warren Price, who represents secrecy.
America
is built on secrets, ma'am, and it would be a shame for this one to get out.
There are other references to this too. The coffee shop that they meet Grant at is on Morse Street. Morse code is a coding system that uses dots and dashes to send secret messages. Anyways, when they finally meet Grant, he seems to be something of an influencer himself.
Hold on. It says you guys don't follow me?
Wow. Hashtag fake friends. And back at the hotel that afternoon, the kids are still trying to get their studying in.
William Jennings Bryan's Cross of Gold speech in 1896 was a polemic against...
Gold?
More accurately, the gold standard. The speech is actually famous for the line, "You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold," which may be a subtle reference to Chucky's crucifixion in the previous season. Just as Jennings Bryan felt that the gold standard put an unjust burden on the American people, Jake, Devin, and Lexi feel that they're burdened with having to destroy Chucky. In order to do so, they research ideas to smuggle weapons into the White House where Chucky is hiding, using creative Halloween costumes. They do this on a site called Dark Fedora. Lol. However, before they can get into the White House Halloween party, their caretaker, Miss Fairchild, has to speak with the First Lady. During this conversation, there's a special focus to frame this picture of Edith Roosevelt, who is known for supporting her husband, Theodore Roosevelt, from a behind-the-scenes role. Kind of like Charlotte is doing in this episode, by keeping the fatal crimes committed inside the executive mansion's walls a secret. I'm convinced this parallel is intentional because of how they zoom in on it after she leaves the room to go conspire with Price. And when that happens, the Doll of Death takes his third victim by strangling Miss Fairchild with the American flag, corrupting a symbol of freedom to use as a symbol of violence. But the next episode would contain a much more surprising connection. Season 3, Episode 3 is titled Jennifer's Body, named after a 2009 movie about a high school succubus whose body becomes a vessel for an evil presence. In the context of Chucky, actress Jennifer Tilly's body is possessed by Chucky's evil girlfriend, Tiffany Valentine. I'd like to point out that I already made that joke 3 years ago in my Tiffany Valentine horror history and even mocked up a poster. In this one, we see the aftermath of Tiffany's arrest in Season 2, where Chucky and Caroline go on the road together. The cab driver mistakes Chucky for an AI doll.
Oh, that's one of those interactive AI robot dolls.
This is a reference to the 2019 Child's Play remake, where Chucky is an AI-powered android. That takes place in a separate universe though, so this is more of an Easter egg than a crossover. The episode also features a dream sequence with Chucky spying on Andy from outside his window, just like Michael Myers in Halloween. This alone might not be significant, but it's part of a long line of Halloween references in the franchise. Seed of Chucky and Season 1, Episode 1 both steal the same opening, for example. And that's not the only callback to the classic era of slashers. Although he's only dreaming, Chucky's method of killing Andy involves him tying his rival's limbs to the bed and knifing him.
Just like the old days, huh? Kinda kinky.
This is another callback to Child's Play 2, where Chucky tied Andy to the bed during his sleep and attempted to transfer his soul into Andy's body before the fun was broken up when Kyle got home.
What the hell is this now?
Yeah, that one's tough to talk your way out of. 33 years later, not much has changed, and Chucky is still dealing with the doll body that he's not entirely satisfied with. He flips through the Voodoo for Dummies book for an answer, and somehow the book got way longer. In Bride of Chucky, Tiffany flips through about half of the book to reach page 77, so we could assume that there are only about 150 pages. But in this, Chucky is seen on page 311. Maybe it's a new edition, or maybe that's just the power of voodoo. By the way, each page is just the same text over and over. It's basically just a description of voodoo and Damballa. It takes a voodoo doctor to determine that Chucky is dying and needs to kill at a house marred by evil, so he and Caroline call themselves a car. Not an Uber, but a Dasher. For those following my entire series of Chucky Things You Missed episodes, it's another example of the franchise not knowing if it wants to use real or fake brand names. Dasher is a fictional company, but in Season 1 they had no problem using the name Uber.
Uber's here, I gotta go.
I'm sure this will be obvious to most of you, but the house that they dash to is the Amityville house.
What a spread! Ron DeFeo, eat your heart out.
For those not familiar, Ronald DeFeo Jr. is the eldest son of the DeFeo family, who in 1974 shot his parents and siblings while they slept for a total of 6 victims. The same number that Chucky needs to please Damballa and get back in his good graces.
The doc said I need to make 6 sacrifices to Damballa for this to work.
The house is famous because the Lutz family moved in 75 and claimed it was extremely haunted, so paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren came to investigate, which has been the subject of many movies, including the Amityville Horror and The Conjuring 2. So there you go, Caroline.
Who's Ron DeFeo?
Oh my god, kids these days.
Season 3, Episode 4 is titled Dressed to Kill, and is named after a 1980 horror mystery film. And the title makes sense for Chucky because this is the Halloween party episode. But it starts with Tiffany being imprisoned for her crimes. She's wearing a necklace that says, "It's Tiffany, bitch," a reference to a line from Britney Spears' 2007 song, Gimme More.
It's Britney, bitch.
This was during the time that Britney Spears first started crashing out, and holy crap, she's been crashing out for the last 18 years since. So this fashion statement from Tiffany carries similar connotations. But then again, she's always been crazy. She finds herself on death row, but it's not all doom and gloom because she gets to meet one of her favorite celebrity chefs, Evelyn Elliott. It's kind of a connection to Bride of Chucky, where at the beginning she was a fan of a different celebrity homemaker who also did time in prison, Martha Stewart. And there's another Bride callback when she first meets Evelyn. Evelyn is watching the movie Bride of Frankenstein, which was the same movie that Tiff was watching in the bath when she was killed for the first time. When she first meets Evelyn, we find out why Tiffany is such a big fan.
Your recipe for Swedish meatballs changed my life.
This is the recipe that she used to impress Charles Lee Ray, leading to her forever being linked to Chucky in the first place.
I made Swedish meatballs, your favorite.
Later on, Tiffany and Evelyn chat as a movie with orange credits rolls on the TV. This feels like another Halloween reference, but it's not the credits of Halloween, though it may be one of the David Gordon Green requels. It's hard to tell. But what is definitely a reference is this. This is a reference to the jump scare time cards seen in The Shining. But that leads us to the Halloween party. It's mentioned that the White House Halloween Ball is for charity, and right here, if we zoom in, we can see what it's for. The Better Days Children's Hospital. The same charity that Lexi's mom, aka the Hackensack mayor from season 1, did a fundraiser for.
Every Better Days hospital in the country will receive a priceless gift from her personal collection.
Mayor Cross's event included a cameo appearance from Jennifer/Tiffany and a shipment of Good Guy dolls that was planned to be shipped to the sick kids at that hospital. What's crazy though is that this is literally the White House Halloween party, and it's basically only on par with that one kid's Halloween party in season 1. And like that party, there are some interesting details in the costume choices. At the Halloween party, there's a theme of everyone dressing up as pop culture versions of themselves. Henry's nanny is dressed as Mary Poppins, the central character from a movie about a magical nanny. Chucky, who is hiding in the White House and manipulating the events that take place there, dresses up as the Phantom of the Opera, a character who secretly lives in the Paris Opera House and manipulates the events that take place there. The main trio all dress as Good Guy dolls. Good Guys are designed to look like kids, and these three all had their childhood stolen away from them when Chucky killed their parents. The Vice President is dressed as George Washington, I think? I'm not really sure, but it's some kind of presidential figure. Finally, President Collins and Charlotte Collins are dressed as JFK and Jackie Kennedy. Not only are they a president and first lady duo cosplaying a former president and first lady duo, but it also serves as a dark foreshadowing, because JFK would be assassinated, leaving Jackie to literally pick up the pieces. The same is going to happen to the Collins family at the hand of Chucky. This actually goes one step further though. The president is played by Devon Sawa, who became a big name in the horror world after he starred in Final Destination, where he narrowly avoided crashing on a doomed flight out of JFK Airport. And season 3 episode 8 of Chucky is literally titled Final Destination as a reference to that movie. The connections get pretty deep.
Hey, where are your costumes?
These are our costumes. JFK and Jackie.
Other than that, there are a lot of generic costumes at the party and only a few specific ones. A guy dressed as the Bela Lugosi Dracula, a Frankenstein's monster, a couple Red Riding Hoods, and one guy wearing that mask that the Joker wears at the beginning of The Dark Knight.
No. I killed a bus driver.
What bus driver?
Hoping to use her unlikely relationship with Grant to get one step closer to finding her sister, Lexi spends some time alone with him. She's somehow able to look past his cringe dancing on his bed, and the two connect over music.
Lexi, you're at the White House. Have some fun.
I am. It's just more of a Blue Oyster Cult fan.
This is a callback to season 1, where Lexi sang Don't Fear the Reaper to her sister as a lullaby. That probably doesn't actually qualify as a detail you might have missed. It has come up in every season, but we can add it to our running list of horror productions that I've covered on my channel which feature that song, which includes Halloween, Halloween Ends, Zombieland, Gone Girl, Scream, X, and all 3 seasons of Chucky. This one also features a cool counterpoint detail. Chucky crushes several people at the Halloween party by dropping a chandelier in the crowd, and as this happens, you can see a Grim Reaper standing in the background, almost as if Chucky is suggesting that we should fear the Reaper. In context, it could be explained as a Halloween decoration, but it's a cool detail nonetheless. There's one more Child's Play reference at the end of the episode. After Chucky's actions result in the demise of several people, including Henry's babysitter, an ambulance shows up to take them away. Ambulance number 88, matching the year that the original movie came out, 1988. And Chucky's first kill in that movie is none other than Andy Barclay's babysitter, who is also carted off in an ambulance. Episode 5 is titled Death Becomes Her, named after a 1992 comedy about a drug that grants immortality, which could be a play on both Chucky and Tiffany seeking their immortality again through the use of voodoo. On the TV, they show pictures of those who lost their lives at the Halloween party, but for some reason, for this guy, they still show him in his clown makeup, which seems kind of disrespectful, but it is funny. Jake and Devin are next to consult the voodoo doctor, hoping to learn how to truly kill Chucky. They discover his address is 444 Primitive Ave, Pelham, Georgia. The number 444 is sometimes referred to as the angel number in spirituality, symbolizing balance and harmony. Dr. Rosen is what's known as a spiritual healer. The street name Primitive Ave could be a reference to primitive medicine, an umbrella term that the use of voodoo spells for healing would certainly fall under, as opposed to modern medicine, which is rooted in scientific research and data-backed health decisions. Pelham, Georgia was probably just chosen because there actually is a Primitive Ave in that town. On the wall in his office, Dr. Rosen has a couple of degrees. Instead of listing an institution, this one just says de Haiti, Haiti. Haiti is an island nation in the Caribbean, which is the birthplace of voodoo. Back in DC, Lexi tries to make things right with Grant.
To me, you're more than just the first son. You're funny and a good brother and a surprisingly great dancer.
Hold up. No. Don't make me play back the footage. I'm playing back the footage. As death continues to take its toll on Chucky's body, he lies in bed flipping channels, one of which is Evelyn Elliott's cooking show. Everything after that consists of other evil doll movies. The Boy, then Dead Silence, then M3 Gan.
Oh, God. What are you doing? No. Kill me now. Ah, little bitch, she stole my moves. You Matrigan.
Everyone made sure to tag me when that moment first aired. As much as I'd like to believe that Don Mancini or Brad Dourif is watching my channel, he does pronounce M3 Gan a little bit differently than I do. Then again, Chucky pronounces Dembala fucking 100 different ways, so who knows. In any event, I've done a ton of killer doll content for some reason. Here's a playlist with my videos on The Boy, Dead Silence, M3 Gan, Chucky, and others. While all of this is going on, Tiffany is still behind bars in Texas, working some of her own voodoo magic to try to get out. Her jail cell is also home to another interesting Easter egg. On the way back from Georgia, Jake and Devin stop off at a hotel. I'm pretty sure you have to be at least 18 to get a hotel, and even if you could get one at 16, these orphans don't exactly have parental consent to check in on their own. Also, did anyone notice the phallic logo of the motel? The next morning, they're about to head back to Washington, D.C., and their conversation is, for some reason, like the exact same conversation that the Warrens have at the beginning of Annabelle Comes Home.
You ever been to California? No. And I've always wanted to go. I mean, maybe when this is all over, we can go on a cross-country trip. What's going on?
Just, we don't have to go back, you know? We can still go on that trip, now.
You know we can't leave Lexi. I mean, she's our family.
No, I know. She can come with us. I think we can convince her.
Just put your head back, get some rest.
If I do that, we might end up in California.
So you wake up to the sound of the Pacific. Nothing wrong with that. I'll pick up Judy on the way.
That actually sounds so nice. Ed, we should plan on it.
I mean, I think this is a coincidence, but it's so specific and similar that it might not be. There was a scene this season at the Amityville house, after all, which is connected to the Warrens. Jake is more optimistic that things will finally work out.
We're the heroes. We're the final girls. I mean, we're Jamie Lee f***ing Oscar-winning Curtis.
It's a reference to their bonding over Jamie Lee in season 1, but also counts as another Halloween reference.
We're gonna win this time.
They do not win this time. But while all of this is going on, Tiffany is staying busy in her Bexar County prison cell. She's been using the power of voodoo to make the guards do her bidding, which includes redecorating her cell with items that are shipped in. There's a box from USX, the fictional shipping company that we first saw in Curse of Chucky, where she used them to ship Chucky to Nika Pierce's house and later to try a surprise attack on Andy. Since then, there have been occasional USX Easter eggs. When Tiffany is giving the guards orders, she should have said, "I got you like a poppet in the palm of my hand. Don't you let me down!" Episode 6's title was Panic Room, which shares a name with the 2002 horror thriller directed by David Fincher. I think the relevance is self-explanatory. The White House certainly goes into a panic when President Collins is assassinated by Chucky, but this time, the ghosts inhabiting the place leave a clue, a note that appears on the wall reading, "Chucky did it." We first heard this iconic line back in the second movie.
Chucky did it.
And it's since become kind of an iconic refrain that would apply to many of the kids that Chucky attached himself to over the years. Price essentially blackmails Charlotte so that he can keep trying to cover up all of the deaths that have happened in the White House, but she has a rebuttal.
Maybe if you spent less time cosplaying G. Gordon Liddy and more time finding out about this Chucky, we wouldn't be in this situation at all.
Liddy was an FBI agent who became a key figure in the Watergate scandal, known for his extreme loyalty and cover-up efforts for President Nixon. Charlotte is essentially calling Price out for being more focused on covering up the deadly crimes than actually solving them. This has been a common thing about this show. It seems to be geared as a teen horror drama, but there are constant references to things from Mancini and Dorff's time that the target audience is probably not going to get. Charlotte has enough on her plate, trying to cover up her own husband's death, and the stress just piles on when she remembers that Grant is having friends over. The dinner at the White House with Mrs. Collins, Grant, Lexi, Jake, and Devin is significant for Jake. Mrs. Collins is clearly stressed out and seems to be numbing her pain with alcohol, and Jake's dad was also an alcoholic. There was a similar dinner at the beginning of the series. As part of the cover-up, Collins is temporarily replaced with a body double, but at some point, Chucky also kidnaps the double. Once again, there's a picture prominently displayed in the background, a portrait of regular Abraham Lincoln, another famously assassinated president. The body double, by the way, is also played by Devin Sawa, making this his 5th role in the series, after Lucas Wheeler, Logan Wheeler, Father Bryce, and President James Collins. Reused actors have been a thing in this franchise for a while now, but this season takes it to a new level. Michael Theriault plays his 3rd character in the franchise, Vice President Spencer Rhodes. His first was Dr. Foley from Cult of Chucky, and his second was Lexi's dad, Nathan Cross, who was in season 1. Not sure how Jake and Lexi didn't realize that the President and Vice President of the United States look exactly like their respective fathers. Lara Jean Chorostecki plays Charlotte Collins. She played Sister Ruth last season. And we haven't quite gotten to episode 8 yet, but it would introduce a character named Wendell Wilkins, who is played by John Waters, who also played the paparazzi in Seed of Chucky. There are also a couple of interesting casting choices that aren't from Chucky, that are still worth mentioning. Chucky's voodoo physician, Dr. Rosen, is played by Richard Waugh, who is known for another role, Dr. Albert Wesker in the Resident Evil games. Then there's the babysitter from the Halloween Party, who is played by Sarah Sherman, a comedian that actually played Chucky before in a sketch on Saturday Night Live in 2022.
We didn't realize you were in there.
Did you hear us talking?
Only the part where you compared me to Janet, you filthy sluts! You'll take you to mess with me!
In the actual series, her character got her face cut off by the falling chandelier. This may, in fact, be a little reference to her role in Flayaway, which you may remember from that time I did a video about the creepy Adult Swim infomercial series. For those who don't watch every single one of my videos, she was hosting a mock commercial for a medical procedure where you can have your skin removed in order to solve the problem of body hair. And it's a very uncomfortable watch, mostly because of her demeanor.
We will donate your skin to our charitable foundation, Skin Kids, which donates your skin to a kid in need of or in want of some extra skin.
And if you're squeamish, you may have felt the same way about episode 7. Episode 7 is called There Will Be Blood, and it's named after a 2007 thriller following a greedy oil tycoon with no heart. You could say his reckless ambition mirrors Chucky's reckless ambition to become the greatest serial criminal of all time, and yes, there's the obvious fact that this is the bloodiest episode in the series. Now, ever since Bride of Chucky, imitating ideas from other horror franchises has become an almost integral part of this franchise's DNA, and almost everything that followed was an explosion of Easter eggs, references, and homages. Usually the properties being sampled are other slashers, like Scream and the aforementioned Halloween. But the last 2 episodes of the series take inspiration from somewhere else, the supernatural genre. In a last bid to cause mayhem, Chucky dies and goes to the spirit realm, which looks and operates a lot like The Further, the afterlife limbo realm from the Insidious franchise. I mean, just look at these 2 shots and tell me this isn't The Further. It even acts like The Further.
Now the White House has become a kind of magnet for the dead, drawn here by Jake.
If you call out to one of the dead, all of them can hear you.
In the spirit realm, Chucky comes across someone reading a tabloid-style magazine that claims to be the world's #1 magazine on dead USA leaders. But the main article, with a headline about food poisoning, has a picture of former President Warren G. Harding. Harding did die in office, but it was a heart attack, not food poisoning. There was a president who died of food poisoning, though. The greatest president of all time, Zachary Taylor. But I'm fairly certain that that's not him in the picture. And finally, after 7 movies and 23 episodes, Chucky gets to meet his voodoo god, Damballa.
You know, I always thought that you'd be a snake or something.
This is because in our world, some believe Damballa to take the form of a snake. I did a video on it a while back. In episode 8, Jake takes a drug to temporarily experience death so he can enter the spirit realm and find Chucky. But he first meets his dad in a location that seems to be a cross between the White House and his room from the very first episode. Final Destination would end up being the final episode of Chucky, as the series was canceled after this, so it's nice to see things coming full circle, which was also exemplified in The Dollhouse, a movie theater where various iterations of Chucky from throughout the series watch Chucky franchise content 24/7. Gotta love how the doors lock when Jake goes in here, the surefire sign of a boss room. One of the Chuckies in this room is Good Chucky, the brainwashed doll from season 2 that Jake and Devin wrongly believed represented a side of Charles Lee Ray that isn't evil. You may remember how they performed the Ludovico technique on this doll to try to reprogram his mind, which is a reference to the Stanley Kubrick film A Clockwork Orange. This time, Jake's interaction with Good Chucky would parody another famous Kubrick film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. As Jake tries to convince Good Chucky to move on from the spirit realm so he can't do any more damage, they converse in a room that pays homage to the final room from 2001, a sort of liminal space where the main character ages under the observation of an unseen alien intelligence. Even the shape of this good guy artwork kind of matches the artwork seen in 2001. But all of this turns out to be a trap so that Jake will leave his human body unoccupied, allowing Charles Lee Ray to return to the human world, another idea that comes directly from Insidious. But while they're distracting him, Bald Chucky, who if you'll recall from my season 2 episode is basically an homage to this character from Apocalypse Now, has a sensory response when they're talking about the smell of Jake's dad getting electrocuted.
Love that smell. Like napalm in the morning.
It's a direct reference of this scene.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
When Chucky takes over Jake's body, CIA-placed explosions cause the White House to detonate and come down around them. You're not supposed to use an elevator when there's a fire, so that's pretty dumb, but thematically it brings Lexi and Grant even closer. She too lost her home to a fire in season 1, and they've already bonded over their grief before this point. The trio gets out alive, and Chucky/Jake leads them to the mansion of Wendell Wilkins, the original designer of Good Guys, to find Caroline. Wendell shares his backstory. His son, Tommy, was stabbed by a madman in a shopping mall in 1983. This is just my own speculation, but could his killer be the hack-and-sack slasher who inspired Chucky to kill in season 1? And could losing a son named Tommy also be what inspired him to give one of the first Good Guy dolls the name Tommy, as seen in Child's Play 2?
Hi, I'm Tommy.
Shut up, you idiot.
At the end, the power of Damballa returns to Chucky, and everyone swaps back, more or less, into their correct bodies. I know they gave up on pronouncing Damballa a while ago, but we just got 3 different pronunciations over the course of a minute.
Hail Damballa!
Caroline is well versed in the dark arts of Damballa.
Ajay Due Damballa! Give me the power, I beg of you!
It's like they saw my Damballa horror history where I complained about the inconsistent pronunciations and just decided to f with me. Anyway, Chucky, Tiffany, and Nika all end up in their most iconic form factors, with Caroline doing her best Latari and Milton as the evil dolls get away. On one hand, I don't really know who we're even supposed to be rooting for anymore, because Chucky and Tiffany are the characters who go under duress and have to undergo a character arc this season more than anyone, and this is basically treated as a happy ending. The post-season wrap-up teases a 4th season, which obviously won't happen now that it's been canceled, but I honestly feel like this is a great place to stop. I talked earlier about how it feels like Chucky's story is coming to an end soon, and here we're introduced to what appears to be the last Good Guy doll in existence. I'd rather them end where they began, with one final movie wrapping up Chucky and Andy's decades-long feud once and for all, before letting Chucky's voice, Brad Dourif, who's 75 years old at the time of recording, have a well-deserved retirement. Of course, we aren't done yet, because we still gotta talk about the crew reference Easter eggs. Let's backtrack to episode 3. There are several newspaper articles about the death of the president's youngest son. The author of this article, M. Russell, is a reference to key scenic artist Margaret Russell. There's another article written by Kent Fabian, a reference to Chucky's clearance coordinator. And this one is authored by Marcin Zak, who is a graphic designer on the show. I almost thought that was my name on there for a second. Finally, in episode 6, after the president's assassination, we see his body double studying up on his biography, which is written by Josh E. Jacobs. Josh E. Jacobs is the screenwriter of the next episode, season 3, episode 7. And with that, we are done analyzing the Chucky TV series. Mancini has talked about doing another movie at some point, so if and when that comes to fruition, you know I'll be ready to talk about it. Until then, I've got so much more Chucky content for you to unwrap. You'll find the full playlist on the left. Remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell and select all notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.